Talk Radio. You're in to all things music.
This is going to get loud. The working musician's ultimate guide to striking a new path through today's music industry. With your host, Paul Nicholas.
Hey, welcome everybody. It's going to get loud. This is Paul Nicholas here. I've got Jackie Bertone from Jackie's Groove on Talk Radio joining us. Thanks for being on the show, my man.
Thank you for having me, my brother. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you've got a wealth of knowledge. You've worked with a ton of people over the years. Real quickly, tell the listeners just a little bit about your past experience, because this is important.
Started at the age of 19 with one of the greatest funk groups worldwide called the Tower of Power, who, by the way, is celebrating 50 years as a conducive unit next year. And I had my start with them again from December 17th, 1979, to be an exact time-wise, for 3 years. Then on and off through the careers. Had the blessings in the years of going deep with the Beach Boy family, Brian Wilson Phillips, and then I go Kenny G, Earth, Wind & Fire, blah, 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 blah. I've been very, very blessed that my talents have taken me thus far.
That is an amazing, amazing wealth of knowledge you have there. And so the reason I want to chat with you today is because a lot of the artists out there are just getting started. Obviously, our show is about helping emerging artists and giving them a peek to what the industry is really like. Since you've seen everything behind the scenes for such a long period of time, I want to talk a little bit today just about groups in general and kind of the roles within organizations. You've got different instrumentalists, right? But you've also got people leading the group, people that are hired guns or players that are off to the side in these different dynamics. So as most of your experience has been with these different groups, how would you advise artists that are, say, not the lead singer or the main person in the group? How do they fit within these dynamics, and how do you see, I guess, people fitting within different parts of an organization? I know that's a very, very broad question, but how do you basically see different members of the group working together in a positive way?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, by the way. And so I think an apropos answer would be for all the young guys out there and young girls who are in there, the best thing to do is listen, observe, take it all in. And then when you feel that you've garnered enough knowledge to be part of that situation, the consortium of great players, then throw in your 2 cents, for the lack of a better word. Lead singers, and I say this because I have a lot of dear friends of mine that are famous lead singers, they all seem to be a little bit touched, my brother. And so you want to pay attention to what's going on there, but you also want to make sure you pay attention to the MD, or better known as the musical director. Follow his or her lead. Remember, regardless of your situation, your status, or my status as a veteran in the industry, we're all still considered to be hired guns. That's it. Regardless of it, we can't lose track of whose name is on the marquee. Ego needs to be checked and left at the door, because the bottom line is we're there for one reason: to make music. And again, pay attention. Get an overall vibe. There's always going to be one or two bad apples in the bushel, but the fact is, you don't have to be one of them. Just be that person. Bring your talents. And bring what you know, bring your A game, if you will, and continue to play. And if your A game is not an A game, I'm sure there'll be someone there to let you know what it's going to take to get yourself into that situation. That, to me, is the best advice I could give.
Yeah, and I would totally agree with that. Obviously, if you're a musician, listening is what you should be doing. Unfortunately, so many folks, and I'm sure myself included back in my younger days, don't listen and pay attention to that group dynamic, which is obviously so important. Now, when it's a group of, say, 4 people in a rock band, or people that are, equal partners, there's not one pop singer with hired guns. How do you see the dynamic changing, especially at the upper echelons where you've been for most of your life?
Well, you know what? Again, then that word is called ego. I mean, the word ego can be a situation, it could be a blessing, or it could be something that's very downtrodden on groups. We all know what ego has done to 4-piece rock group, 5-piece rock groups over the years. They've broken up. It's like a bad marriage. It's like a good marriage. You know, the children are the recordings. You've got to come back to them eventually. But at the same time, too, there's a time where someone has to get kicked out of bed when it's just not working. And that situation is, again, find out exactly and have a worth to what you are bringing to the show. And never lose sight of that. You know, there's nothing more than too many chiefs, you know, and not enough Indians, as they say. If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the expanding kind of on that, one of the questions that I constantly hear, and everyone constantly hears from emerging artists, but I'm sure pros ask themselves this as well, since being in a performance ensemble, whether even if it's an orchestra, jazz combo, drumline, 4-piece rock band, jazz band, funk band, since it is like being in a marriage or a very intense relationship, when is enough enough? When is it time to pull the plug? When is it time to leave the group?
When it becomes no more fun. When it's like a bad relationship. We've all had them over the lifetime, being a relationship of marriage or relationship of dating. When the joy turns into, oh, God, are we going to do this again? Or are we going to subject ourselves again? And trust me, when there's disarray in a group, an ensemble, it's not only going to show in the inner mechanics of the group, but it's going to show in your music also. You know, you can't fake emotion. When you're on top and your heart's filled with joy and your chops are there, man, it's going to show and you're going to feel it. There's been so many times where you've been on stage yourself, and when the music and the vibe is so good, sometimes you forget there's even an audience because you're all so much into each other. And that's magic. And that's what we all hope that will stay from the time we walk on stage, 20, 30 years ago, 5 days ago, or 5 minutes ago. We want that elation that we all share. But I've been in a lot of situations, even around my local digs, where I'll go sit in with certain groups and I'll see the disarray in the band if someone should play off or miss a note. The look on stage, the daggers that are thrown from the eyes. And I even tell these young guys, too, man, if you guys hate each other, take it off the stage. Don't let the audience see that. It's not fun. And so the question is, and the answer to your question, when it's no good, believe me, you'll know it. You'll know it.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of things that I want to touch on there. One of the biggest, most important points from a performance standpoint, and I mean, I've been in a lot of different ensembles, certainly not at the level you've been at, but it doesn't matter if you're at the lowest levels of the game or the highest levels of the game, like you said. Take it off the stage. Do not throw looks. Do not, make a snide comment, and certainly don't do anything that would visually draw the audience's eye, like turning off someone's amp, grabbing the guitar out of their hands, kicking the drum kit. I mean, these are all obvious things, but even pros do these kinds of
Did I lose you there, kids?
No. Anyway, that's a good point right there. And so what would you say to the people who are saying, yeah, but, we're just getting this band off the ground. It's not fun right now, but, we're going to get over that hump. We just got to get on that tour. We just got to get that record deal. We just got to make a little bit more money. What do you say to those folks?
Well, get your shit straight before you go out on the tour, or before you go in the studio, or before you want to strangle each other. Get all of that stuff crossed out, because guess what? You're going to have shit throughout the years. And if you're blessed to be together for a long time, again, it's a relationship. You got to figure you're not there to change somebody, because someone's not going to change to suit your needs. But at the same time, too, you want to be able to be filled. You want to get to that gig. You want to have a positive feeling, man, as you're driving there. I can't wait to get to rehearsal, or I can't wait to get to this gig, and so on. If you have something that you think that's going to rub your bandmates in a wrong way, that won't benefit it, you know what? Keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. If you're looking at that person on stage and it's really bothering you, but it's not affecting the music and it's not affecting the conduciveness of the band, keep it to yourself. It's better to eat a little bit of humble pie, than to upset the apple cart, as they say. Also, easier said than done. Well, the thing is that.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to jump in and say that, to your point, that kind of little bit of negativity can spread like a virus and infect the entire group when it doesn't necessarily need to. So I definitely hear what you're saying about keeping that to yourself. Did you have another point you were finishing there?
Well, you remember, when you're going to see, let's say, for instance, you're going to go see Tower of Power, you're going to go see Santana or Chicago or Van Halen, whatever it is. Not everybody's going to see Carlos Santana. People are going to see their favorite musicians in the band. So just when you think that you're not visual in the eyes of the audience, remember, there's people out there that are coming to see the band as a whole, but each musician itself as a whole. If there's one thing you don't want to do, if there is disarray in the group, you want to keep that disarray in the group. You don't want to start any unabashed rumors that may get out to the listening audience, friends, and so on. Again, that festers like a virus, and you want to stop it. The whole idea about music is keeping it real, keeping it enjoyable. When the world's falling around us, the best thing we can do as humans, man, is turn the radio on and listen to music. How many times have you heard the term music, calms the savage beast? I mean, music has taken me through a lot of crap. And when I'm down and when I want to get a resurgence, then you listen to the songs that lifted your heart. That is what works for me. Again, trust me, I'm not the easiest person to get along with, but I've been in groups that, not just 4 pieces, I've been in groups that range anywhere from 10 members up to 15 members. You talk about a juggling act.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that, there's so many points that I want to touch on there. I'm trying to think of where to start, but
take your time.
The question, no. The other question I have for you is that, there's a lot of things that come into a group when they start getting a little bit bigger. You start having more than just the 3, 4, 5, or even 12 people involved. It becomes more than just the musician. It becomes managers. It becomes agents. It becomes people's handlers. It becomes attorneys. It becomes label executives and things like that. So how much of the band's business do you keep within those 4 people, and how much advice do you listen from the people whispering in your ear from the outside influences? Because there seems to be a corruptive force that comes at a single musician from all angles. Say you're the drummer of XYZ band, and you're even at the low level of the game, there are a lot of forces that are pushing and pulling you. How do you deal with that, and how do you focus in on what matters?
Well, that's a great point also, because the word, I've always said this, the words music and business should never share the same sentence. There's a split. And remember, as an artist, as the player, bass, keyboards, drums, vocals, you are hired guns. You are talent. So the bottom line is you learn to designate who carries the torch for each job that the band requires. Yes, as your career builds and as there are more people involved, yeah, you're going to be yanked left and right. And oddly enough, it's not always the band and the members that actually cause a breakup. It's the business side of it also. And the bottom line is there's people out there, there's attorneys, there's agents, there's managers that can try to get into an ear of a leader, a lead singer, bass player, keyboard, guitarist, and so on. So the bottom line is, try not, and again, the word is try not to let the outside influences degrade and mess up the vibe of the band. It all comes down to one thing as you get into the higher echelon of playing. It comes into money. Who's making more money, who's not making enough money. Just go in there as a musician. You're not going in there as the attorney, the agent, the tour director, and so on. Keep it under wraps of what you're there to do, and that's to play music. Let the other people out there fight it out. And if it comes to you, then it's going to be at your discretion if you want to deal with it, which I highly recommend you don't. Because guess what? When it's your time to leave the band, either on your own or being fired, you're going to know again. you're not going to have that option. When it's no fun to you, walk. When it's no fun to the band, they'll let you know. It's again, it goes back to being in a relationship. How many outside people do you need? How many bad mother-in-laws do you have to keep the ship afloat? I hope that makes sense.
No, that makes complete and total sense. And one thing that I've always thought about, and I've told the people that have asked me about all of these influences and who's doing what within an organization, just like being in any relationship, I said, look, you've got your relationship with the guys in the band as a whole and with each one individually. That's great. Anything outside of the band, I always say, look, try and have a strong network of friends and family, people that you trust that you can talk about these personal things with that aren't involved in the business. They're not involved with the band. They're a totally separate group of people that can really listen to you and give you a different, meaningful perspective because they only care about you. They don't have a stake in your career, the band, their relationship with any of those guys. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100% with that. And the reason why I agree with that is that one of my closest friend is Todd Sucherman, the drummer from the great rock group Styx. And, between, Panazzo and JY and Tommy and, Lawrence Gowan, of all the bands itself, their tour manager, George, has been with them for 40 years. And now here you're talking about men who have millions of dollars in their bank account. They have worldwide fame. They have egos that are ridiculous. But the thing I love about this, and I love to watch this, they're all scared to death of George. Now, this is the tour manager. This is the den mother. This is the one that I got to tell you, I spoke about this more than not. When you're backstage at a Styx concert and you're all chopping it up and everybody's having a cocktail, beer, whatever it is, you're in this vibe, and all of a sudden you're all waiting for this 6'5" older guy with white hair to pop his head in and go 5 minutes. Now, if you've never seen guys with egos clamor because they will cut the conversation short so they don't piss off George. And to this date, if you're late for a lobby call, if you're late for anything, you are fined. Now, the fines, when you're in that echelon of money, are heavy duty. And the bottom line is fines are... are we going? I hear the music in the background.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, man. We're going to finish that thought in 2 seconds, right back here on Intertalk Radio. Stick around.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
This is Jackie Bertone from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hey, it's Tracy Smith
and Beth Venus
of Girls Talk Rock right here on the Intertalk Radio Network.
Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific.
Okay, Beth, they know that, but we want you to know that the industry pro's choice is Silver Tiger Production.
SDP is a full-service production agency offering sound, lighting, installations, talent buying, staffing, backline equipment rental, and sales. Kapow!
It's everything in the entertainment performance industry. It's all that.
SilverTigerProduction.com.
This is going to get loud. The working musician's ultimate guide to striking a new path through today's music industry. With your host, Paul Nicholas.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We've got Jackie Bertone from Jackie's Groove with us. And we were talking a little bit last segment about where musicians fit within an organization. And kind of the most important thing about being in any group is listening, understanding your place. I wanted to talk a little bit this segment, kind of have a freewheeling discussion about what it means to be a great musician. This is kind of a philosophical question, but I hear it bouncing around studios. I talked to my producers and other folks about this. Jackie, tell me in your words, what does it mean to be a great musician?
In my opinion, it's called being humble. Something that I didn't know that word growing up in the industry, and being very, very flexible. As a young lad in the industry, when you're right out of high school, working with one of the world's biggest funk bands, and excuse my French because I speak French fluently, you think your shit doesn't stink. But guess what, guys? Your shit does stink. And there's plenty of people out there in the industry that will let you know that, because just when you think your ego is huge, the people who cut those checks, their egos trump yours. And so the fact is, what I've learned from being a great musician or a good musician is that you don't have to tell people that you're a great musician or a good magician. What gives you that the accomplishment and the adulation is that when your phone rings and doesn't stop ringing. I learned that back in the early to mid 80s. And as I grew humble, when I'm around these worldwide stars, and let me just move forward for a couple seconds. I was at a club not too long ago, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and listening to some friends play. The manager walked up to me. She said, "Jackie, sneak a cheek." She said to me, she goes, and so I moved over. She goes, "You know what? I knew you were a musician using the quotation marks with her fingers, but I had no idea that you were a musician." And I used the quotation marks back. I said, "Thank you, question mark." She goes, "No, what I mean by that," she goes, "I was on your website. I was kind of stalking you, and I had no idea that you were associated with or played with these bands that I grew up listening to. How do you stay so mellow? How do you stay so chill?" And I said, "Well, that's a good question. I always wasn't like that. But in my older years, 25 years later, 30 years later, I realized one important factor. I am a hired gun. My name is not on the marquee. I'm below that marquee, and I accept that. But most importantly, and this is something I want everybody to learn and understand, the people that I have been blessed and associated with who are the most famous musicians worldwide, people you turn the radio on, people you turn the TV, there's music that you grew up with as a child to contemporary times. And my feeling has always been this: if they don't have an ego, why in God's good name would you have an ego? So that's what it comes down to, a situation where you just be blessed for your blessings of music. You know what? You don't need to sit there and walk into a room with a neon sign that describes your bio to everybody. Because you know why? Some people just don't care. Jealousy is a horrible emotion. And I know growing up over the years, I still have my very, very close hand group of friends that would take a bullet for me and vice versa. They don't care who I am. Case in point, my wife, married 33 years, doesn't give a rat's ass who I am. And I mean that in a loving way, because the bottom line is you're nobody different than that person that's, if you're making $150 a gig or if you're making $150,000 a gig. Guess what? You put your pant legs on one at a time. We all poop and pee. You're nothing better than anybody else. And when you start losing sight of that, that's when you need to walk away. That's my philosophy. And it's all.
I definitely don't disagree with that. I think that, and I'd love to hear your 2 cents on this. My feeling with people who became rock stars or emerging musicians that want to get there, I get the sense that they felt, I've had to struggle for so long to get where I am. I've been kicked around by club owners, managers, everybody in the industry. I've been beat on for so many years that finally when I get the big arena show or the big theater show and whatever, now it's my time to kick everybody around. And I tell them, I get the sense that that's how people feel a lot because that's what we see and that's the way a lot of folks act. But the reality is that, yeah, you did have to go through a lot to get there, but it doesn't mean you have to be that way. For every movie star, rock star, politician, or CEO that acts that way, there are a million, Richard Bransons or Bill Gates or these other people who became gracious over time. They may have not been that way at first, but there's people that are the opposite, that are humble and that are more gracious. And I think that not only looks better on you as a person, obviously, but it's going to make you happier over time. Point being, there's absolutely no reason for that ego or that negativity. It's not going to affect anybody, including yourself, in a positive way.
Well, let me share one story, if I may, which is so quickly that you brought this part up. Years ago, I did a great TV production for A&E and Sony called HD Planet. And an overall synopsis that had the who's who of musicians, all the Nashville heavies, the Eddie Bears, the Brent Masons, the Michael Rhodes. These are all the Yo-Cats, session masters in Nashville. We recorded this in Chicago, and we had a plethora of the names on there. Just to drop a few names: Hawaiian legend Henry Kapono, Christopher Cross, Mr. Sailing. And the biggest name on that show was a gentleman by the name of Joe Walsh. So Joe was one of the last ads on this production. And we were all there as the crux of the hired guns. I'm sitting there smiling on stage because I'm with every one of the musicians that I'm looking at have played with everybody: Vince Gill, Garth Brooks. I can go down the line of anybody who's in the country business. Those guys recorded with them. So we are in the middle of this production, 2 nights. We had to wear the same clothes because it was being filmed for 2 nights. It was basically a concert for the senses, which means the 2,000 people that were in the audience, they were all reclining in chairs, and if they had these big HD photos or images of, say, snow or pineapples, they actually pumped those smells into the arena. Crazy, crazy, crazy performance. Now with that said, yeah, we had Mr. Christopher Cross. Now, understand, I recorded this in the early 2000s. Mr. Christopher Cross sailing and so on. Now, I'm going to say this, and I don't really give a shit. Chris has got the worst attitude to this day. If you guys go to ChristopherCross.com and look at his writer, he thinks he's Van Halen. And what I mean by that, yes, he only wants brown M&Ms. So as me and with these other Yo-Cats, we're watching him stamp around backstage because things just weren't in line. In fact, Christopher flew in and refused to use us as his backing band. Well, that's a big mistake. So he still has a very capable band of playing, but he's pissed off, and he says, if I don't get this, if I don't get that, if I don't get this, and I'm watching this guy have a tirade backstage, and I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, did someone tell him that his Grammys came back in 1980? Literally. And so what I mean by that is that he's stomping around like a little prima donna. Then you have this gentleman by the name of Joe Walsh, the James Gang, Eagles, and Joe Walsh. And so we're all watching Christopher walking around backstage like a jackass. And then when production asked, and by the way, Christopher traveled with 7 guitars, like he was Al Di Meola. Now, with that said, they go to Joe Walsh and they said, Joe, what kind of a guitar would you like? And Joe's humble response was, a blue one, please. So, that, and that's a true story, my right hand to God. And so when you look at situations like that, it's pretty amazing, and it becomes very bothersome. The old situation, for the listeners out there that don't know or have heard the story about the brown M&Ms required in Van Halen's writer. Now, if you don't know the true story about that, it wasn't the fact that David and Alex and Eddie and Michael wanted brown M&Ms. They just wanted to make sure somebody was actually reading the writer. And that is the true story. My dear friend growing up in the industry was David Lee Roth. I mean, I still crack up to this day that I was hanging with David Lee Roth on a regular weekend basis when they weren't on tour. And we're talking during the tour of Diver Down, you know, when Van Halen was at their pinnacle. But the fact of the matter is, here's a man that is worth, you know, tens of millions of dollars. He's David Lee Roth. He dresses the same in public as he does on stage with the spandex and the boa, and he's David Lee Roth. But the cool thing about that is he was the most, I just ran into it not too long ago. He was the most, and still is the most easygoing dude you'll ever meet in your life. But it's when you get, and the old rumor was that he and Sammy Hagar hated each other. That couldn't be the furthest from the truth. Sammy's the first one to tell you that he didn't deserve to be in Van Halen. And the fact that all the hits that Van Halen became famous for weren't because of Sammy Hagar. They were because of David Lee Roth. You know, so you hear all of these bullshit stories until your feet are in the mud and you know the real stories. So you sit back and you can go on social media and dispose myths, or you can let people argue. You know, and it's really, really funny. So the bottom line is, you can be world famous and be the most humble dude, or you can be world famous in yesteryear and to be the biggest asshole. I don't like being around assholes because I'm surrounded by the who's who of players, the world famous musicians that are just like you and are just like me. Brothers out there in arms doing one thing, playing music for the masses. So, you know,
and
again,
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
No, go to finish. I was finished, but at the end of the day, go ahead.
Yeah, and so, you know, a lot of the, you see a lot of this with emerging artists. I talk to a lot of these guys in the company that I deal with, and I always tell them, look, it doesn't matter if you're a superstar or if you're a nobody playing in the bar for, you know, $150 or $200 a night. The bottom line is that, you know, be easy to work with, be a good person, ego at the door. Here's the thing. If you're an ass, nobody's going to want to work with you now. And if you're famous, some people may work with you because you're going to have money, but you're not going to attract the right people. And bottom line, there's absolutely no reason for it. So take a good, hard look at who you are, what you want to be, and make sure that you start off your career right. And if you need an attitude readjustment, I mean, look, musicians are supposed to be some of the most introspective, self-aware people. So do a self-scan of yourself and your entire personality. And if you need that adjustment, brother, you better make it now, or, you know, you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot. And that goes out to a lot of lead singers out there, you know, myself included. Now, I never got anywhere, so my ego's pretty low. But you know,
that doesn't matter though, because I'll tell you what, I have a lot of very good friends of mine or good associates of mine that have talent that is huge, but they're dicks. And they're still working in local clubs. The reason being is they're dicks. My motto is every morning you wake up, like my wife tells me, don't be a dick. And if you are an emerging artist and you're an asshole or already coined that you're hard to deal with, guess what? Club owners don't have the time. You're done before you start. Club owners don't have the time to babysit, and most club owners are assholes themselves. There's nothing worse than playing in a club. Now, let's be honest with you. I'm playing in a club not too long ago, and I tell the local guys, do me a favor, just say you're having a buddy come sit in and so on. If they want to find out my background, then let that be exciting to them. But I had a local club owner. He was a dick, and he really didn't care. Even after finding out that the reason why the line was around the club is because the word got out that Jackie Bertone was going to be sitting in with the band. The band was highly gracious. The audience was gracious. But this club owner was a dick. And he wanted to prove to me that it was his club, and I wasn't really doing anything because they had to close the doors because there was no more room in the club. So what I did is I had a choice to either say, don't you know who you're talking to? When at this club, they have memorabilia at this club with me, my drumsticks, my drum heads, some gold and platinum albums that I've donated. And he's a new manager there, and really didn't know. So I could have said, well, do you know who I am? And then I can point at the walls. Or can I just smile? And so what I ended up doing, I really succumbed to his bullshit. I said, yes, sir, I apologize. I mean, I really overplayed the point. Then he found out afterwards who I was. And there was so much fun inside me to watch him grumble, to watch him know that he really was a dick. Ended up being one of the coolest guys and apologized. So there's no need for you to apologize whatsoever. Just don't be a dick. You know, there's times when I get up in the morning and I'm in a shit mood. My wife doesn't put up for it because I'm afraid of her, and I mean that as a good side. And if I'm in a shitty mood, I just stay away from people. I mean, the CEO of this network, Florentino Buenaventura, has got to be one of the most beautiful, soft-spoken, easygoing guys. Now, Paul Berzetsky, our engineer and the CEO of the corporation, I'm afraid of him. Because
you should be afraid.
And thank you, Paul, asshole. See, Paul doesn't care. And that's I want to surround myself because, yeah, it's exciting that someone like me is on the network and stuff, but guess what? Paul and I, we break bread, we sit down. He's been to my house. We've been through tough times. The bottom line is it doesn't matter, man. It really doesn't matter. And each person should have a Paul or a George from Styx to basically walk around with the pooper scooper and to pick up our shit when we think it doesn't stink. You know, and that's the cool part about it. I am known as the most impatient person. My wife will testify to that. Paul and Florentino will testify to that. But I'm that way because my T's have to be crossed and my I's have to be dotted. It drives them up a fucking wall. But the bottom line is, you know what? I don't do it out of ego. Because they know that I'm impatient. They know that that's the way I am. So now that they've opened up a can of worms, I can be Jackie where I'm playing it off, but I'm being dead serious. And the thing is, I've earned the title every once in a while to be an asshole. But when I become too much of an asshole, the title is stripped from me. And bottom line is, you have to earn some things in life. If you're going to be a dick or egomaniac, have something to be substantiated behind it, but keep it on a leash. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was going to say, even then, I don't know that I would, condone that. But yeah, like you said, if you got to be there, make sure that you've at least earned it. But listen, I really, really appreciate you so much for being on the show today. I'd love to chat with you some more in a future episode. But everybody, Jackie Bertone, Jackie's Groove on Enter Talk Radio. Thank you so much, sir, for being here today. We're going to be back on the next segment with another guest, and we're going to get into that real soon. It's going to get loud. Paul Nicholas on Enter Talk Radio.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Girls are talking rock again.
And people are listening.
Today we're talking bands.
Let's talk promotion. Red Giant promo, graphics, EPKs, video, photos, social media, and brand building using content marketing.
But let's talk studio at CCMA, which is events, rehearsal, tour prep, piano, guitar, voice, rock band, lessons, workshops, and clinics. Yeah!
Both proud sponsors of Girls Talk Rock.
Well, get the lowdown on these services and contact me, Tracy, at girlstalkrock.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is going to get loud. The working musician's ultimate guide to striking a new path through today's music industry. With your host, Paul Nicholas.
Hey, welcome back. We've got a new guest for the final segment. This is Mr. Aaron A. Train Smith, drummer for the Temptations. Thanks for being on the show, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Good to be here.
And so you have a new show that's coming out on EnterTalk, which is what we wanted to chat about. It's called Intersect or Intersect Radio. Tell us a little bit about, first of all, when it's going to be on and what you're going to be talking about.
Okay, well, it's going to premiere right after your show today. Florentino and I are going to get on together and talk about the plans for the show, some guests that have committed to be on the show, and then we're going to take a week off because EnterTalk is going to be at NAMM next week, and we're going to crank up again on the 24th, and from that time forward, we hope to have a program on every Tuesday at 4 o'clock Eastern. I'm sorry, 4 o'clock Central.
I was going to say, that might be two shows at the same time.
Right. 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Eastern. And
that's very cool. I'm sorry, just real quick. Are you going to be up at NAMM?
No, I wish I could get out there. Yeah, I'm here in Nashville.
Gotcha.
I usually go to Summer NAMM now that it's back in town.
Yeah, and we might actually be going to that as well since we're out of Atlanta. So
cool.
Tell me a little bit about basically the epitome of the show. You guys are going to be talking about music, but how it affects people in more of a spiritual sense. Is that correct?
Correct, or how the spiritual sense affects the music. Because there are a lot of musicians who started off, just wanting to play music, and we went through the club life and the touring life, and and all the stuff that comes with that, being on the road, being away from your family,
sex, drugs, rock and roll kind of thing.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, exactly. And
Yep.
then we had an encounter with Christ, and things change after that. So it's I think it'd be very interesting to hear those stories and hear how it changed the lives of musicians, how it changed their music, how it changed their intent, and what they're doing now. So, I mean, once a musician, always a musician. But I know a few guys who are going to be on the show who ultimately went to seminary and now are either preaching or teaching theology.
And so you're doing this show obviously because you've had this kind of experience that's led you to this. Tell the listeners, I think this is a good segue into your show. Tell us a little bit about your own background, your own experiences, and how you changed throughout the course of your music career and touring, recording, and all these things, and how over time your perspective may have changed. Okay.
Well, I grew up in church, really, but I had to go. I had to grow up there because I had to go. I didn't go on my own. And so in high school, I started playing drums in elementary school, and went to junior high playing drums, but only in the marching scene. And then I got in high school, and somebody suggested to my mother that she should get me a drum set. She did, and I joined a band that had two of my musical band leaders in the band from school. And from there on, I just kept going, and I went on tour with my first tour was with a Motown artist by the name of Chuck Jackson. He had a hit song called Any Day Now. And, man, that was, I was leaving home at 18, and that was a totally different lifestyle, introduction to sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And
especially during those times.
Yeah, especially. This is like 1969, 68.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yeah. So we were just about to enter the psychedelic stage, at least for me. I'm sure it was already going on, but I was being drop kicked in it, and just went on from there. From one band to another band, and I had a pretty wild lifestyle, and I got married and had a child, and I just got in a very bad space, and I prayed. I kind of remembered all those times in church, and I prayed for help. And actually 2 weeks after that, a Christian record label president called me and asked me if I would be willing. I was living in San Francisco, and she called to ask me if I'd be willing to come up to Sacramento and do a record with one of her bands. And I did, and I eventually went to Europe with that band, still as an unbeliever, but when I came back, I was a believer. And it changed a lot of things for me in the especially how I spent my time, who I played gigs with. I turned down a lot of auditions because I knew if I just wasn't ready to go. I was a young Christian, and I was just not ready to take any risks. So I moved to Sacramento, became very active in the church there and the record company there, and eventually moved here to Nashville to record and tour with contemporary Christian music artists.
Now, let me ask you this, because I wanted to jump back real quickly to when you were first 18 and starting out. Did you have any idea of what you were getting into at that point? Did you have any idea of what the lifestyle would be like, the pressures, the temptations, not the band, I mean the literal temptations of, the lifestyle and all that kind of thing?
No, I didn't. I was very naive. I was a country boy and didn't know much. And I was always, there was a long period of time there where I was always the youngest person in the band. I was the kid. So my role models were the older guys who were more experienced on the road, more experienced in life, And I kind of went along with the gang, and they introduced me to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Then you have to be careful about what those actual experiences are.
Exactly.
Right? And so,
they weren't that wild. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in the late 60s. It was probably like a glorified slumber party, I'm sure. So fast forward to, many years later, would you, and this may be a strange question, but I'm curious myself, would you say that it's the music that led you to religion, to God, to changing your attitude, your lifestyle? Was the music independent of that? What role did, I guess, your musical soul or the music in and of itself play in that transition?
Well, the music didn't cause the change, but because I was a musician and the music in that sense, it introduced me to people who were already believers and were writing contemporary Christian music. So in that sense, it kind of led me there. But really, life itself led me to Christ, because life can be very pure and honest and teaches you a hard lesson if you don't listen as you're going along, and that's pretty much what brought me to Christ. But it was because I was a musician, I was introduced to Christian music artists in that way.
Yeah, and that's another interesting point that I would make to our listeners out there, which is that, and everybody knows this, but the point is that just because you're an emerging artist or even an established touring artist, and you're in a kind of lifestyle that you think is appropriate to quote unquote the scene, there's no one way to live your life. You can exist as a musician in any genre or in any lifestyle that you want to. Basically, don't buy into the whole, you got to act this way, you got to do that way, you got to get tattoos, you got to be on drugs, you got to do this, you got to do that.
Oh yeah, it's
completely up to you, and basically have the strength of conviction to play the music that you want, live the lifestyle that you want, and anybody that doesn't agree with that, tell them to piss off is what I would say.
Yeah. Well, we lost a lot of musicians living that lifestyle. Drugs are a dangerous thing, and even if you first get into that scene just to get high or have a little fun, it can be a dangerous thing. Drugs and your physiology and your mindset and the people you hang around, all those things come together, and they can work against you.
I would even say that musicians being who they are, and you touched on this, is that their brain's already wired a certain way, and so when you introduce these kinds of chemicals, it's particularly a dangerous cocktail of a musician's brain with psychedelic or cocaine or something that's going to make them see the world or see themselves in a different way that maybe somebody else wouldn't. It's a more potent cocktail. It goes from a stick of dynamite to being the atomic bomb, and musicians' minds are wired to be more addictive in the first place, including to music, which is a positive thing. So that being said, I can't comment too much on the dark side, although I've gotten into a few things. I've had some wild times, but and nobody will believe this, but I will say this publicly, and I've said it many times. I've never done drugs in my entire life, and
that's great.
Not to say I haven't partied and had some fun, because I have, but never had that draw for me. But I've people that I've been in bands with and played with me have gone down the dark side, and it's a scary, dangerous thing. And so let me ask you this too: do you do anything that any kind of work with musicians to kind of maybe rehabilitate them spiritually, or away from that dangerous kind of musician lifestyle?
No, I don't actually. I'm an elder at my church, and I'm an elder over the worship team, and so we have a lot of everybody's very young. It's just me and another guy. Two of us are elders, and we're over that portion of worship. And we have a lot of kids come in, and we have to tell them that this is church. It's not the stage. You don't have to perform.
No mic drops and crowd surfing and that kind of thing.
Yeah. No jumping up in the air to cut off the song and stuff like that, So in that way, we mentor those guys, and we've had a lot of conversations. They're very curious about our past, and they confide in us, things that they're going through, stuff like that. So in a way, yes, but outside of that church community, I haven't had that opportunity. Now, having said that, maybe with the show, Intersect, maybe some of that will come about as a result of doing the show, hopefully a lot of things like that will come about.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool. It's something that I definitely want to tune into myself. Now, real quickly, are there, you'd mentioned that there are going to be some guests coming on. Can you give us some insight as to any particular folks, or is that a surprise that we got to wait to find out?
No, I just don't have the dates that they're going to be there, but I've gotten commitment from musician, songwriter, producer, college professor Charlie Peacock, musician, songwriter Brent Bourgeois, a friend of mine. Well, they're all friends of mine, actually. Mike Rowe from the group The 77s. Let's see who else. Jimmy Abeg. It's actually Jimmy Abeg. He's a great guitarist. He's a great friend of mine. We've been together. We've known each other since like 1982, and we've kind of had parallel careers and lives together. Our families were friends and stuff like that. And Jimmy is a great guitar player, a great painter, and a great photographer. He was
the true Renaissance man there.
Yes. He actually at one time had careers in all three of those art forms going on simultaneously. But he's got an interesting story right now, and I'm not going to give it away.
Okay, well, everyone's going to have to tune in to find out then.
Yeah, that's on the 24th.
The 24th. Okay, I'll definitely make sure I have to put that in my blog as well. We've got just a couple of minutes left. Is there anything else that you wanted to let the listeners know about your show before I have to sign off here?
There's been, well, for one thing, we originally posted the time of the show as 3:00 Central, but that was changed yesterday to 4:00. So it's important to note that. I will have social media links up on the Intertalk radio site. I covet your suggestions and comments, and if there's anybody whose story that you would like to hear, I'm open to that, as long as it's got to fit in with the show's theme. But I'm totally open to that sort of stuff, and would love to hear from people, and I hope they can listen in regularly, and if not, at least check out the archives.
And I'm sure people will check in. We'll make sure that we let folks know as well. Intertalk always does a great help with that. Really, really wanted to say thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you, Paul.
Can't wait to hear what you've got going. Sounds like you've had a pretty great life, so I want to tune in because I want to hear a little bit more about your path and the advice your guests have as well.
Okay.
Sorry we can't see you at NAMM this month, but I'm hoping we can catch you up there in Nashville for Summer NAMM.
Yeah, see you Summer NAMM, and we'll go get some hot chicken.
Oh, my goodness, that sounds great. And I've got a lot of buddies in Nashville. Obviously, we're out of Atlanta and whatnot, so I'll definitely give you a ring when we're up there. But Thank you so much, Mr. Aaron Smith. The show is Intersect Radio. Tune in, go to entertalkradio.com to check out more show updates the guests are going to have on that kind of thing. You're listening to Paul Nicholas. It's going to get loud here on Intertalk Radio. Thanks so much for tuning in. Next week, got a great guest, but we're going to keep it a secret. So tune in to find out. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Cheers.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
This is Jackie Bertone from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.